It's Wednesday, November 15th. I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo. Oh, wrong show.
Wow, this man does too many damn shows. Let me bring it in. Welcome to Ekeler's Edge, where yes, it is me, Austin Ekeler, as Matt always says every week. And I am accompanied by this knucklehead over here who is trying to actually join the Bald Squad. Welcome, Matt, to the Bald Squad and Ekeler's Edge. You know, this is Ekeler's Edge. Ekeler's Edge, Matt.
Just also to be clear, we are presented by Toyota.
Yes, absolutely.
I do know how to satisfy a sponsor, Austin. I might not know exactly which show I'm hosting. I mean, listen, Ekeler's Edge is on the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show feed. So I say we keep all this in. This is perfect. I love it. But I also have to say, it's a hell of a day to talk ball. And I'm lucky to be joined by you to do that, buddy. And yes, thank
Likewise.
you. I just gave myself a clean shave. I shaved my own head. We were at the Super Bowl together, and I showed you that I'd gone with the full clean shave. I'm like halfway committed to whether I'm going to keep the shaved head or whether I'm going to grow the hair back. But
can we first get the what influenced you to shave it?
Well, my hair is not as thick as it should be. There's one spot back here that's a little problematic. Also, my mom actually had breast cancer last year and was going through chemo, and so she had to shave her head. So I did a little solidarity there and shaved my head with her. She's growing her hair back, and she's like, why? Well, because she's all good now. Things are great, which shout out to her. She's the best. But she's like, why don't you grow yours back? I'm like, I'm not 100% sure whether I can deal with the in between phase, right? When you're you're growing your hair back out and it just doesn't look that good. So I might just stay short like this, but also, it's just there's a lot going on there.
Okay.
There's a lot going on there. So I haven't decided exactly how I'm gonna do the hair going forward. But yeah, no hat today, just for the hell of it.
Well, any of you listeners out there that can help Matt with his thinning hair, obviously I can't. So, drop him a tip in his inbox, Twitter, Discord, all that. Let him know. Let him know if you got some tips for him.
Well, I appreciate it. For now, I'll just stick with the beard because that's what's really all about.
Sure.
You pull off a pretty good, you got some facial hair, but you pull off a pretty good clean look all the way around.
Thank you.
If I did that, I would just look like a giant baby, like a large, oversized human child. So
I can see it.
Oh, I'm glad you can see that.
Have you ever seen those masks that are like the crying baby masks that are just bald? Yeah,
that would be me.
Yeah, for sure.
Crying about my damn fantasy team on Sunday. So that would be me. All right, well, that's
anyway.
a good update on our hair and what's going on there.
Yes. Not much, actually.
Yeah, not much for either of us.
The lack of, therefore.
But you know what?
Anyway.
We both look good, okay? That's what matters. We both look good.
As long as we think so, Matt, that's what matters, damn it.
As long as we think so and our significant others think so, that really is all that matters.
There you go.
All right, let's waste no more time here. Let's talk football, man, because pretty unbelievable Sunday here, historic Sunday in the NFL. We had 5 games go down to the buzzer on game-winning field goals. It's the most ever on a single day. Monday Night Football followed it up with a 6th buzzer-beating field goal. Oh my God! Did you catch any of that nonsense last night?
Yeah, I caught all of it. Yeah, wow, what's that song? The turn of events. Oh my God. That's what it was like. Yeah. Sheesh. They won. Oh, they're in field goal range. Oh, they're looking good. Oh, they get sacked. They're out of field goal range. Oh, there's a penalty. They look good. Oh, they missed the field goal. They look bad. Oh, there's a penalty. They look good. And and that's the emotion that I experienced right there. There you go.
Yes, that was pretty much what I experienced as well. It was wild. It was unbelievable. Again, the whole Sunday experience was wild. Unfortunately, the Chargers were on the losing end of one of those games we're talking about here in what was a thrilling game with the Detroit Lions. Very high scoring, a lot of back and forth there. But, buddy, I got to ask you, you saw your boys, Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, in person. Thoughts on seeing those two guys operate in person?
Yeah, there's some studs, man. And, at the beginning of the season, I was like, 2 backs in the top 15, that just seems like a stretch for any team. I don't care how good your backs are. But they have been trending in the right direction. So, yeah, I know my eyebrows are definitely not nervous yet, but they're out there like, oh yeah, maybe you can put the non-eyebrowed Austin on there, which is hilarious. Then maybe I will be rocking that look for the wedding. Oh, my fiance.
Do you actually have it? Do you have a date? Do you have a date set yet?
Yeah, we have a date, and it would definitely affect it if I shaved him right after the season. So I'm not sure if my fiance would, we might have to actually I don't know what happened. Actually, we should get her on here and ask her. I'll ask her and get the feedback from that. If I had to shave my eyebrows,
ask her, get the feedback. I will say, for those who are unfamiliar, if this is first time listening or you're a new listener, you didn't listen to preseason, Austin just out of nowhere, completely unprompted, we're talking about bold predictions. A listener sends in a bold prediction that David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, both of the Lions running backs, are going to finish inside the top 15 fantasy backs. Austin, again, unprompted, is like, if that happens, I'll shave my eyebrows. And you can't just say things on the internet. That's a binding legal contract, okay? Especially on whatever this podcast is called. Not that I know. You can't just say that and it just goes out there. That is a binding legal contract. So Austin is he's aware of this whole thing going on here. Then he ends up getting engaged afterwards. It's his whole. I'll tell you this: as somebody that just got married within the last couple years here, I'm gonna be a good guy here and tell you, if you do end up redeeming the eyebrow bet, I'm gonna go ahead and say you didn't say right after the season. I'm gonna go ahead and say we do this once the wedding is done.
For sure.
You don't have that in your life.
For sure. But I think it'll still be funny to prompt it as if, hey, this is my obligation just to see her reaction. So we'll see.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Actually, oh no, you have to get the reaction unencumbered to that whole thing. Totally. But I think for an actual redeeming the bet situation,
right,
we don't do that to you guys. That would be unfair.
Right.
But for those keeping track at home, right now, Jahmyr Gibbs is officially a top 15 running back. He is the 15th highest scoring running back in half PPR, Yahoo's default rankings, default scoring. David Montgomery, running back 22, 8 points away, actually. It's very tight there from being a top 15 running back. I will say, Austin, the phrase we're going to talk about playoff race, the phrase they control their own destiny. This team controls their own destiny. You kind of control your destiny here a little bit because you are running back 24. You can pass up these guys
for sure
and push at least one of them down.
Like I said, those guys have been trending in the right direction. I also have been trending in the right direction, getting back on track here a little bit. So still not at full capacity where I should be. I've leaving some stuff on the field. Got to get in the dang zone when I have opportunities down the goal line. Feel like we could have had a better go at one. So we're there though. We're knocking on the door of getting back into the top 10. That's where I'm aiming for. With the injuries and all that stuff, I think that's realistic. My bold prediction from the beginning of the season, we'll see what happens, which was number 1 3 times in a row. As we got to take steps. Let's try to get back in the top 10 first, and then we'll see what happens from there. Still got 8 games left, just past the halfway mark, so a lot of football left to be played. A lot of craziness to happen, as we can see in the NFL.
100%, a lot of stuff left to be played. But yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about Gibbs and Montgomery now at this point. Again, I feel like we've ended up talking a lot about them because of this eyebrow bet, but it was pretty crazy that, as again, somebody on the outside, I had said, listen, you could start both these backs in fantasy now going forward because these two guys win in different ways, right? From a running back position. Montgomery's typically that goal line back. He's going to punch in the touchdowns. Gibbs is really active in the pass game. He's maybe more of an explosive runner. But then Austin, being right for the wrong reasons is hilarious because I'm right. You could have started both these guys in fantasy, but for not the reasons I just said at all, because Gibbs is the one who punches in a goal line touchdown and Montgomery has a 75-yard touchdown run. So that's a little bit of just, again, being right for the wrong reasons.
Man, I mean, I feel like that's what fantasy is, honestly. You put these things out there and then you have expectations and you never know how it's going to actually play out, but guess what? Good players are going to make plays. It might be what they tend to do. They might have a new tendency, depending on if they're getting a new coordinator or what's going on with their offense, or, maybe it's the other way where it's hey, you're, wrong for the right reasons, so it goes both ways. But no, I agree. I agree. These guys, man, they're putting on a show, and I'm excited. Even though they just beat us, I'm not excited about that. I'm actually pissed off about that, but excited to watch them continue to play and see how this plays out for this top 15 stuff.
Yeah, it should be pretty exciting. I can't wait to see what they do the rest of the way. They're a fun team to watch anyways, man. Yeah, Ben Johnson, great offensive coordinator. Love Amon-Ra St. Brown, what he does. Yeah, it was a close one for you guys. The entire AFC playoff race right now, Austin, is incredibly tight. 11 teams right now in the AFC are over 500. Despite the Chargers being 4-5, you guys are one game back of a wild card spot. In fact, only the Titans and Patriots are multiple games out of a playoff spot in the AFC right now. I mean, it's pretty insane. I think it goes to show just how tightly packed the AFC conference is right now. Take me inside your perspective as a player and maybe like what you think organizationally in the middle of this to try to kind of make sense of what we on the outside be like, man, this is a bloodbath, right, in this type of race.
Yeah, man. I think, there's a few things that I think. One is I think competition is really getting really leveled, like where things are starting to really level out. And you could say that, pretty much every year, but I think this year is showing at this halfway point where it's like teams have good players. Like there's still teams that are like, okay, these guys are just straight up bad. But I think maybe the way the scheduling has played out has made it so the AFC teams are playing all of the teams that are not great. And so now we're just scooping up wins, right? We're scooping up these wins, and then we play each other, and it's like really close and tight games. And so it's been really interesting. But yeah, then also, I mean, it's the NFL, and you can never expect to see things because you do, but then it's like crazy stuff happens all the time, and this is why this game is so popular. Like I will never stop saying like the NFL does such a great job of making this so exciting every single year because it's so many different new things that can happen. Or remember this season when this was happening and this trend was going on, and now it's right where it's just like the AFC's wide open halfway through the season, and all of us, especially all these people that are in the hunt, and even the other teams too, we take it 1 week at a time, and really that's what it comes down to because you can get beat on any Sunday. There's no guarantees, and you get reminded about that every single week. Where you have upsets or teams that you didn't think would perform as well, that are able to perform as well, and it kind of goes back to show that, yeah, we are all professional players. We're all really good at this sport, and just because you have good people that on paper look good doesn't mean that they show up and play on Sundays. That you got to continue to play to your full capacity to get the best result. And so, man, it's getting tighter and tighter, and it's more exciting. I think it's amazing. Maybe not for like the fans when they're out there because they're like, we just want our team to dominate. But as a player in this stuff, it's like we're all in the flipping. Like this is the grind of the season right now, man, and it's ultra competitive, and everything matters just that much more because now one game back, you might be gone because there's so many people in the hunt right there. So, man, it's an exciting time. We're not in the most advantageous spot, but guess what? We're in this spot where we play a lot of these teams that are in that hunt. So guess what? If we continue to win out, right, everything's in front of us. And so, man, it's a good time to be in the NFL and the AFC right now.
Yeah, look, as a non-biased observer, I love this because I'm not a fan of any of these teams. I mean, look, I want you guys to do well because, like, you're my guy, and I want good things to happen to you and this team. But for the most part, it's like I'm not riding or dying with any of these teams because I'm not a fan. Right. I love this, right? This is electric for me. Yeah. I mean, this is great, and it's funny too because I think sometimes as an analyst, like I have wouldn't call it a weakness, but like, for example, when I'm watching players and I'm watching I'm watching routes, right, for receivers and stuff, and I'm charting that. It's like every route is like, did he win or did he lose? Did he get open or did he not? Did he execute his assignment or did he not? And like, yeah, that when you're trying to find the baseline of a player and like who a player is, I think that's kind of like, look, you take all things in context and you just watch it happen and try to sort, again, compare that and sort it to other guys. But in moments like this, when games really matter more than ever and every play matters, like I had said to you the other week, like, oh, well, drops, like it happens or whatever. And you're like, it can't happen because it not, especially not right now when like every play matters because every game matters at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that, because if you think of that over the series of a schedule, where it's like, man, a drop 4 weeks ago, which could have changed the entire game, might have flipped the entire way our season went. It may have been the difference between making the playoffs and missing it if we needed that one game. And then, man, it's why we're compensated the way we are, because it's so entertaining and there's so many people watching to see what's going to happen, and there's so much money coming in the sport and all the betting and all this stuff, because it's so close and it's so tight. And then when it actually plays out like this, obviously I wish we were in a better spot, but then a weird part of me is like, I love that we're in this grind, and it's like, we got to go out there and do it, because like it puts some pressure on you, and you're just like, all right, like we're going to see who's real. Like, let's see if we can do it. Can we put this together? Can we get over the hump? I'm not shying away from it. We're not shying away from it because there's a challenge. It's like, that's what entices us. That's what's intriguing. That's what we're like, I'm immersing myself into the challenge of like, boys, we got to get this done. Like, because yeah, we have 8 games left, and it's a mix, but it's a mix. We got to separate. We got to elevate ourselves. And look, we're scoring a bunch of points. Like, defense came out and shut out, people at the end zone for like the last 2 weeks. And so we know the capability is there. And it's like, okay, can we put a full, complete game together against a good team? And we're going to have to do that if we want to separate ourselves. And we have the players to do it. We've shown all of the different, styles of play that we have, whether it's, hey, defense basically won a game for us, against the Jets, that, hey, offense, we're out here, slugging it out. So we have the capability. Can you show up on Sunday and put it all together? And guess what? The other team's trying to do that too. That's why we go back to, how exciting this stuff is. But man, as a competitor, I eat this stuff up. Like, this is what keeps me going.
Yeah, you're definitely a guy who thrives in that pressure. Obviously, I think we could say that over the course of your career so far. And yeah, it's funny how you mentioned just again the drops thing. Like, one thing can really change the entire narrative. A great example is last week where the Bengals and the Texans. Obviously, you didn't watch this game because you're playing your own damn game that day. But Tyler Boyd literally has a pass, he drops it in the end zone. If he catches that pass, Bengals win that game. And like this whole national conversation about, and I'm not even saying that it's a bad conversation to have, because I think it's probably the truth that like, oh, CJ Stroud needs to be in the MVP discussion. Tyler Boyd catches that pass, which CJ Stroud has nothing to do with in that moment. Like, the guy's literally on a damn sideline. He catches that pass. Bengals are probably in the playoffs right now if the season ended today, which obviously the season doesn't end today. But they're in the playoffs. The Texans are out of it, and people are talking about, well, CJ Stroud threw that interception on the drive before, and like that's where we're at. It's just that is how thin this stuff is, especially when it's tight like it is right now.
Think of another example too. This is an interesting one, but the Monday night game, right? We watched the Bills lose. If they don't have 12 men on the field and they win the game, does the coordinator get fired?
No, probably not.
Do they keep him? Because now they won. So it's like, it's for not just the players, for coaches, for everybody. It's so thin as far as the line to, right, you're doing well to you're not. And it's just, crazy game.
Right, yeah. For those who didn't see, Ken Dorsey, the Bills offensive coordinator, was fired Tuesday morning in wake of that Monday night loss, which, look, obviously, it shouldn't have come down to that. The Bills shouldn't have had those turnovers, but Denver misses the kick. They have 12 men on the field. Tell you what, Ken Dorsey's not the one counting players who's going to be on special teams. So, like, that's the business, man. That is what it is.
It's crazy, man. And I'm always so intrigued, when it comes down to, like, I wish we could get I could be on like a fly in the wall and hear like the owner and the GM talking about like, should we get rid of this guy? Like, I think that's so interesting. Like, what's the logic in firing a guy? Because I mean, their offense is like highly ranked as far as like offenses go, and it's like, what's the rationale behind that? And we'll never know, because we'll get like the cliche, we just decided to go in a different direction, thought it was gonna be better for our team, whatever, yada yada. But I'm like, like, I'm really, really just interested, because man, it's like,
I think it has to be
emotional, a huge decision.
Right?
It's a huge decision. Right, like you have this whole, now it's a whole new different person that's calling your plays, and so it's probably going to be the same plays that are being called, but it's like now it's like the whole like thought process behind the person who's doing it is totally different. But just one of those things that's interesting, and it's not just it's really after the end of the season too, like just watching like different people that got fired. Like we fired Joe Lombardi, they fired their guy. Like the shuffle is always interesting.
Right. And I think there's got to be some level of emotion put into these decisions too, just like there's emotion put in every decision, whether you want to admit it or not. Because it's not as if, Ken Dorsey last night is sitting here saying like, you know what play I'm going to call right now? I'm going to call the James Cook fumbles play, or I'm going to call the Gabe Davis drops the ball and it goes into the Broncos' hands interception play. But like, look, that is the business, and like people start to fall, and then it's eventually the buck stops at one person or whatever. So I don't know.
Oof.
All right, let's transition to talk about a team that is actually kind of shocking everybody in the AFC a little bit. And Austin, on the yesterday's episode of the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show, I said at the end of it, teasing this podcast episode, that we might be talking about the next Austin Ekeler. And I'm saying that a little facetiously, but let me paint this picture for you. There is a running back on an AFC playoff contending team right now who sort of kind of emerged as an former undrafted running back, initially in like a backup sort of passing down role, played some special teams, then he got on passing downs, and then this past Sunday he was, quote, announced as the starter, according to ESPN's Brooke Pryor in a conversation with this player. I don't know what that part means, but it's been pretty clear that he is at least in like a timeshare with a former first-round running back. This player also wears the jersey number 30. I mean, bro, we're starting to stack up some similarities here, if you know what I'm saying.
There's some similarities there, yeah.
The player I'm talking about here is Pittsburgh Steelers running back Jaylen Warren, who has been sort of, like I said, a little bit of a revelation the last couple of weeks. But honestly, it's not even just him. Najee Harris has been more effective the last couple of weeks while Jaylen Warren has been splitting some carries with him. I want to read off just some stats about the Steelers run game the last 2 weeks. And in full disclosure, Austin, this is not one of my favorite offenses to watch, especially from a pass game standpoint, just not one of my favorites. That being said, the way they've run the ball the last couple of weeks has been incredibly impressive. Second in rushing yards the last 2 weeks with 371, trailing only the Ravens. They're fifth in success rate, third in EPA per rush. 21% of their runs have gone for 10-plus yards the last 2 weeks. That's the most in the NFL. Prior to that, in weeks 1 through 8, they ranked 18th. And this is the most telling stat to me. Just 36.9% of their runs were stuffed, according to Fantasy Points data. They define that as carries that did not result in a first down or a touchdown, less than 4 yards on first down, or less than 3 yards on any other down. That's the second fewest in that time span in the NFL. Previously, they had ranked 8th highest in weeks 1 through 8 at 48%. So a lot of numbers there, but long and short of it, the last 2 weeks, they've been running the hell out of the ball. When you look at these two players and the Steelers of late, what are you seeing?
Yeah, man. It definitely reminds me, back with Melvin Gordon and I, right? Where his first round pick guy, he was still, for the first couple years, like the workhorse back. And then I started to have this presence of, okay, maybe I can be like a change up type of pace type of guy. And we could definitely be seeing that right now, whereas like the change of pace guy, with Jaylen is coming in and is right. He's fresh, right? I think that's what has helped me, and especially right now, like with Joshua Kelly and the rhythm we have going right now. And what helped me back then with Melvin was that when I got in the game, I felt fresh. And like after the games, I still felt fresh, and it helped my body continue to play at a high level. And obviously you have to be a good player to come out here and be announced the starter undrafted in front of the first round pick. And it seems like, yeah, he did. He had 15 attempts this last game versus the Packers. So, even this narrative of starter is a little, gray as far as like what that even means, because like you can still look at Najee and he had 16 attempts. He actually had more attempts, and so it's like, what does starter mean? And to me, back when I was going through that period where I was like the backup, but I never felt like I was ever the backup. And I think it's the same thing here, where like they both probably feel like, in a sense, they're starting in their role because they know they're going to have a significant role in the offense. Both these guys are, part of that backfield. And like for me, it was like special teams. And then, when Melvin was tired, I would get I get a drive here and there. Like that was my role. And I started in that, and I continue to build on it. I continued to build on it through the season. At the beginning, the first 3 games, I only played special teams. And then I started getting on offense. And they're like, okay, maybe this guy can play a little bit. And I scored a touchdown, and I was like, okay, let's keep giving him the ball. And by the end of the season, I was regularly getting, put into the offense, which seems like what's happening here with Jaylen. And then it became this like 2-headed monster type of backfield, which I can see playing out where both these guys are playing or can play at a starter in the NFL caliber. And so you could say that, yeah, he's a starter. But I know in his mind, he was probably thinking the same thing that I was, where you already think you're a starter. That's how you approach the game, like you're starting the game. But, you continue to gain more respect. You continue to gain more confidence in players, or coaches do, in the player. And then guess what? If they're going to come out and just straight up say you're a starter, then boom, yeah, now you know what your role is. He's been increasing his role, which is amazing. Shout out to the undrafted guys out there, because it just goes to show it doesn't really matter where you come from, how you got there, but it just matters what you do when you do get here. And so I can see kind of that playing out where it's like now they have this like duo backfield where, in my opinion, is going to help both these guys out, because like I said, after the game you feel a lot better when you could split.
That definitely stands out to me, because there were times in Najee's career where he's having these like 20 touch games, consistently week after week after week. And then you have on the flip side people complaining about like his yards per carry, like, he's a low yards per carry player. It's like, when you're getting that much opportunity and you're kind of getting grinded down, you can have an inverse effect. The more you touch the ball, the lower your yards per carry is. And I think it also, then you compare it to guys like Jaylen Warren, where, again, these are discussions that people would have in the offseason. Like, well, this guy's yards per carry is so much higher. Maybe he's just straight up better. And it's like, well, you sometimes have to look at the type of runs these guys are getting, right, where that influences yards per carry, that influences efficiency. And then I think again, like I've said, not one of my favorite offenses. I think they can be very, very predictable with some of their use of these 2 backs in previous years. And my God, don't get me started on the route concepts. But like now, I think you're seeing the last couple of weeks here, like Jaylen is starting to get some of the Najee Harris carries, quote unquote. Like, again, Fantasy Points Data has a stat on man gap runs. Jaylen Warren is 9 carries, 83 yards and a touchdown, 9.2 yards per carry, huge success rate. But then like on their zone concepts, they're kind of pretty close in terms of usage. They're pretty close in terms of yards per carry. And they're like, Jaylen obviously brings that explosive element as a rusher, which is what I think makes him really intriguing. But then when you can kind of mix these guys in and out, I think it brings out the best of both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then I've been trying to figure this one out, because like you have the change of pace and styles. It's tough to have see what like that, how that directly affects the defense. Because for whatever reason, I felt like when there's like you would see these change of pace types of backfields, I feel like it really helps. And maybe it was because now the running backs were more fresh, or maybe it was because it was different types of running and they were used to kind of like, they got muscle memory to seeing this type of runner, and now they kind of got off. But like we've seen a lot of these duos that have worked out over the years, whether like Alvin Kamara and, Mark Ingram, Zeke and Tony Pollard, me and Melvin Gordon, what's going on right now with Tennessee and their situation. And then now we're seeing it right here. So maybe it's not all over the place, but I've seen it work, and it's been consistent, especially the Lions right now.
Right.
And man, so I think it's just another example of one of those where it's like, hey, we got 2 great players in the backfield. They complement each other, and hey, they both have success together. And, sometimes you see when the other person leaves, actually it's a drop off, right? Maybe it's because the more carries, it's the more consolidated to some person. Maybe there's less fresh, or I really, it's hard to tell, but I'm
Dallas
a fan.
Is a great example right now with, I think Pollard has been more effective in previous years as that like change of pace, or at least in a kind of committee with, and it could be a lot of other factors going on, but that is at least one example right now.
Yeah. And I can't ever put my finger on like why that is. There's probably multiple reasons, depending on, and it probably depends on the backs too.
True.
But, I've just seen it play out, and it's, for whatever reason, it works. So yeah, it's another example of one of those. But shout out to Jaylen Warren, man. Let's go. Represent the undrafted guy. Where do you go to school at?
Oklahoma State.
Okay. Yeah, he's still a D1 guy. Okay.
Yeah. Not a total loss. That's where the Austin Ekeler comparisons fall apart, and maybe he's not the top scoring running back in a couple of years.
Yes.
But I do think from a fantasy perspective, these are two running backs. Like, again, this run game has been kind of just like not productive the last few years. Najee, even coming into these last couple of games, he's been a pretty big fantasy disappointment. And then Jaylen Warren has been a guy that's like, sometimes there's just backs in fantasy, Austin, where it's like, this guy's just on the field enough. He's just touching the ball enough for him to be pretty unplayable from a fantasy perspective, but he's taken a lot of work from the starter, right? Or the guy that people want to be the factor in fantasy or whatever. But now we're at a point where these two guys are getting just the right amount of work. And look, it's a 2-game sample. Maybe things change and they go back to not being a very effective run team. But I would say from a Steelers perspective, you're a defensive heavy team. You know that like you can get after it from that side of the ball. Your passing game is not necessarily where you're finding consistent explosive plays. So I think there could be some staying power here. And if there is, then you're looking at two guys that could be, potentially reliable fantasy running back 2s, running back 3 types.
Would you say, because this is interesting, because I know people back in the day used to be like, yeah, I picked you up way back in the day. But like on the dynasty leagues, is this the guy you start looking into to potentially get kind of cheaper here?
I mean, I think so, right? And that's when you can really go crazy from like from a dynasty perspective, is when you get like an Austin Ekeler on the absolute cheap, right? Before you go and become, and look, not everybody is going to become where you become like a top 5 running back, a top 5 draft pick off the board. That's probably not going to happen. But if you can get that player, like I think about from the receiver perspective right now, like Josh Downs in Indianapolis, like rookie who's been productive, but I'm not sure people know exactly just how good he is. When you get somebody like that, before it happens, that's obviously when you can really break out here. But I do think like he might have like staying value long term. Again, I'm not 100% sure where his career goes, but he's definitely somebody that I would consider if you can sort of like getting sort of like a package, like, because I don't think you can just make a straight up trade for him right now at this point because he's been so like rising. But if it's like, we're close on this deal for this player in your first round pick, but like, how about you throw in Jaylen Warren and then we call it a deal? Like maybe that's something like that.
Yeah. Or maybe you're kind of on the back end of a guy that you're like, hey, maybe this guy is getting close to being done. Maybe here's a value trade that can help someone else out. And, maybe they're on a playoff run or something like that. I was like, hey, and they'll take this guy and maybe, I don't know, if you have a guy that's maybe on the back end type of thing. So
totally. I think they're two very interesting players to watch. And again, I think Pittsburgh is a team that's going to be involved in this AFC playoff mix. And fantasy players are always hungry and hunting for another option at the running back position. So I think they're two interesting players to talk about. And again, I'm looking for anything exciting out of this Matt Canada offense. Poor Matt Canada, man. I kind of feel bad for him. Like, you see these videos where like the damn like other Pittsburgh sports games are like chanting for him to be fired. I'm like, you never see this about coordinators. I mean, I kind of feel bad for the guy, but hey, he's got something going on in this run game, so let's see it the rest of the way.
All righty.
All right. With that, before we do our bold predictions, quick update on our fantasy league, Austin. We both lose this week in the Ekeler Invitational.
BS, man. This week, look. Shout out to, I forgot who I played, but man.
You played Colin in the auto draft.
Oh, yes.
Team.
I played producer Colin, who doesn't even have someone in one of his running back spots or had someone on a bye, and still his team put up 147 points. Ridiculous. And then of course, my team goes off too. My team put up like 130 or something like that. I would have beat all but producer Colin and one other team. I would have smoked everyone else. And it's one of those weeks where it doesn't matter, it's a reminder, one of those weeks that's a reminder that it doesn't matter how many points you score, you have to score more than the other team, which, showed me actually in the NFL too, I'm sure our 38-point outing would have beat most of the teams in the NFL this week. But guess what? We didn't score enough to, beat the Lions, who scored 41. So I guess such is life. I guess I taught myself my own lesson in real life and in fantasy.
Well, you're still in third place. Christopher Harris has still yet to lose in this league, which is absolutely atrocious. He is undefeated, 10-0. He's the first place team. Nick Ercolano of BDGE Fantasy is number 2. You're number 3. Josh Norris is 4. Your boy, Matt Harmon, lost also this week in embarrassing fashion. I mean, I cannot get this running back 2 thing right. I mean, I got a lot of problems right now. I had Jalen Hurts on bye, so I did not pick up Josh Dobbs. Didn't get him on the waiver wire as we talked about, which was disappointing. So I had to start Taylor Heineke, who scored like 8 points and then got hurt. So
yeah,
tough break. Austin, I had Keaton Mitchell, another undrafted guy who's got some juice to him. I had him in the running back 2 spot, ready to rock. And then last minute, I'm like, you know what? He was injured. I'll just start Alexander Madison over him, who got hurt too. I mean, and I ended up losing by it was a pretty close game between Adam Rank and Adam Rank's. He barely scored any damn points. I lost by 6. So,
hey, Matt, control what you can control, man. Like, you can't control injuries, unfortunately. And so, this is one of those years where you're trying to scrape by to find a way. You're not totally out. Like, you're in the hunt right now. And guess what? Just like the Chargers right now, we got to find a way. We got to find a way, damn it. And maybe it's believing in what we got. Maybe it's switching up something here and there. You got to make that decision. But yeah, man, hey, stay strong. Look, you're in the AFC right now. That's what you got.
Very much in the AFC. This whole league is very tight and contentious as well. 6th place, let's say this again, 4th place to 11th place. Everybody is either 6-4 or 4-6. So it's very tight. A lot of stuff going on there. And you're right. Look, I think I can peak at the right time. And that's what this is all about.
That's right.
I have never won a fantasy league when I've been the person that just like is in first place and I dominate the regular season. Guaranteed some bullshit's going to happen and you lose, okay? So Chris Harris, sorry about your loss. You're not winning this league. Knock on wood. But it's always the team that comes in like hot at the end. And I think now that you're out there doing your thing, Jalen Hurts' bye week is behind him. I got these like intriguing running backs off the waiver wire. Keaton Mitchell picked up Ty Chandler before last week's game. Maybe Nico Collins gets healthy. Like, I think we're in a good spot here to peak at the right time over at Harmon's Hedge. But
that's what I'm talking about.
At least that's what I got to tell myself.
Hey, that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean, we take it 1 week at a time, right? We're not looking at the damn playoffs right now. I got to beat the Packers. Who do you have this week? Producer Colin? Yep, you do. Yeah. So boom, that's all you're trying to beat now. You're just trying to beat this auto draft team that he'll probably have some guys on bye week that he won't even change because he doesn't even look at it. So, you got this. You got a chance. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, come on. I got this team.
Yeah, for sure.
Worst part is, too, he's the auto draft team you lost to. Najee Harris has him on the team. We just talked about him. I'm on Ross St. Brown. I mean, you ran into a bit of a buzzsaw there, but I'll be all right. I got this. We'll be fine. Let's land this plane, Austin, as we always do. All right, Austin, since we're teaming up this season with the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander, the perfect vehicle for making new memories, we're going to create some memories of our own in this segment we are calling Future Snapshots. So, Austin, make me a bold prediction. Who is going to have a memorable performance this weekend here in Week 11? You got a Matt Harmon draft grade C- on your prediction last week.
I don't even know if you can give me a C- though. My bold prediction last week was Josh Jacobs over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. He didn't even score 1. So I'm going to say that doesn't qualify. I'm going to say, I would say if he scored 1, that would be a C-. I feel like this is pass fail. Like this ain't no
a D-.
This ain't no like, oh, well, you kind of got it right. No, this is a pass fail. You set a benchmark, and did they hit it or did they not? So I can't accept the C- grade. Thank you, producer Colin, for, trying to ease that. Yeah, there's a fail. It's a fail. So this week, we will redeem ourselves. So my bold prediction for this week is looking at this Cowboys and Panthers game. I'm saying Tony Pollard is going to break his drought of not scoring a rushing touchdown, and he's going to go for over 100 rushing yards and a touchdown.
Oh, baby. This is a good, bold prediction. This is going to get the people very excited. Well, I don't know. Actually, right at the moment, everybody has basically given up on Tony Pollard. We do a segment on the Tuesday podcast, Austin, called the Coping Corner, where it's like, hey, it's not working out for this guy this year. Like, no more panic. You can't panic about it. You just got to cope. Okay. Like, just cope with the reality of what it is. Tony Pollard was the Coping Corner candidate yesterday. So that would be pretty great if you, in your bold prediction, just, tell Matt Harmon and Andy Behrens to shut the hell up, and Tony Pollard goes ahead and has a breakout game. That's a pretty electric, bold prediction.
Well, you can continue to cope, but guess what? He's still got to go out there and play, and he's playing the 1-8 Panthers. And so it's like, all right, bro, this is the week. 100 yards and a touchdown.
It is very well set up for him to thrive. My bold prediction, I will also talk about a player that plenty of people want Andy and I to put in the coping corner, but we haven't just yet. Calvin Ridley, Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver. Listen, he's had his big moments this year, but like the low moments have just been so low. And it's not even all necessarily his fault. It's been like a lot of 20-yard games, very, very volatile, very up and down. I am saying that this is going to be one of his boom games against the Tennessee Titans, who allow 8.5 air yards per pass attempt. This is the defense you want to attack vertically. There's a lot of steam out there about, hey, Doug Peterson, you got to move this guy around, find some better matchups. Let's get him away from press coverage. That's not really working out so far. So I think it's going to happen. I think this is the week. Calvin Ridley, nobody's going to want to start him. Nobody's going to want to start either of these two players, but nobody's going to want to start him, but he's going to be a top 10 receiver in week 11. So there are our bold predictions. See, we're making memories here every day on Ekeler's Edge. Those are our future snapshots. Thanks again to Toyota and the first ever Grand Highlander. All right, Austin, hell of an episode. Yeah, literally nobody's going to start either of these two players in our bold predictions, but we're saying that this is the week.
Look, this is the week. It's a new week. And guess what? I like my bold prediction this week. Well, I do like him every week, unfortunately. So let me just digress there. Yes, this is the week. This is the week.
All right, Austin. Hey, shout out to you. Appreciate it. We're not going to see you next week, though, man, because we got Thanksgiving, the holiday. So no Ekeler's Edge next week. But we wish you well out there. Continue to go and try to make this playoff push for the Chargers, man.
Hey, 1 week at a time. It starts right now with the Packers. So yeah, I'll be out there, out there in the cold again, and you'll be in your room, watching, from the safety and comfort of your home.
With my blankie and my hot
with your blankie,
cocoa.
I'll be out there scoring you a bunch of points, man. So I got you this week. Let's get it.
All right, we love to see it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a big Austin Ekeler fantasy day. Shoot, I needed to stay alive in the Ekeler's Invitational playoff push. So that's great. We'll talk to Austin in a couple of weeks here, likely with a Ask Austin mailbag. So stay tuned for that. Details on that will come out later. Tomorrow is Thursday. You know what that means. Heading into a full slate of NFL action. It's Stat Nerd Thursday with Dalton Del Don, where we give you one stat you need to know for all 32 teams. Until then, we're out.